Okay, we are live and back for our AI weekly roundup. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys again. My name is Elena Kachan. I am the community marketing manager at Bloomreach. And I have some amazing, exciting, cool guests to introduce you to today. We have an amazing episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the state of Gen AI and commerce with Future Commerce. So I'm super excited to introduce you to everybody. We're going to go around in a circle like usual, and we're going to talk about this new report. And I'm really excited to dive into it with you guys. So Rachel, welcome. I'll let you introduce yourself first, and then we can get started.
Thank you. So glad to be here. Rachel Swanson, Head of Insights and Research at Future Commerce. Responsible for all our unique, custom data and reports that we put out, as well as supporting our brand across initiatives.
I love that. Thanks. What about you, Philip?
Yeah, Philip Jackson, and I co-founded Future Commerce to explore this idea that there's a culture within the state of the e-commerce and retail industries, and what we do has a real meaning and impact in the world through the technology that we employ and the things that we sell. And so if you can touch commerce, you can touch the world. And so that's what we do through newsletter and research and podcast, and putting media out almost 5 days a week now at Future Commerce.
Hey, I'm Paul Edwards. I'm here, home of the 49ers in the Mountain View office at Bloomreach. I'm product strategist. I look at the evolution of our product and the adoption of new technologies. So obviously Gen AI is super, super exciting to me. So this report in particular resonates.
Absolutely. We're super excited to have you on. I am very excited to hear y'all's opinions, thoughts, and all of the things about this report. And Paul is our resident AI expert, so I'm super excited to dive in with them. So we are going to be talking about this report. We just launched it, and Future Commerce is a big partner of ours from the community side. And obviously they put out so many great pieces of content, this being one of them. So I'm excited to show you guys a little preview. And if you haven't downloaded it yet, you'll get to see it here now. But I wanted to start with the Future Commerce team, because obviously this is a labor of love. You guys put a lot of time and energy and effort into this. AI is a super hot topic, and we previewed it at the Edge Summit too. So if you were there, you got a chance to see it. If you tuned in online, like 15,000 other people, you may have gotten to see it there as well. But this is here, it's live. So I'm so excited to get the exclusive. So Rachel, let's kick off with, what is the report about? Maybe give us a little bit of background as to like why you guys put this together, and give us a little context. And obviously while we do that, we'll show you what it looks like as well, because it's very beautiful.
Sure, Elena. I mean, to your point, AI and how it's impacting our lives across all facets is such a hot topic right now. I'm sure all of us are getting multiple newsletters and content pieces across social, et cetera, on the daily in terms of how AI is going to impact our lives. And for our team, and working with Bloomreach, we were really excited to uncover what was happening right now. There's a lot of conjecture and projection around how things are going to change, but we didn't feel like there was a sense of the state of Gen AI usage in the commerce community right now. So our goal was really to just unpack that a little bit. And I think one of the big hypotheses was that there was, some trepidation, and really, in the general media, we see that, right? There's trepidation and concern, but again, we were skeptical if that was the true story with, our folks in our world. And that was really the driving force behind the study. We were able to really do an in-depth survey with over 300 folks across different areas of the commerce, retail, e-commerce, tech, agency world. But everyone had to be decision-making and, a part of the funnel in terms of innovation of commerce experiences within their organizations. So these are people who are on the front lines, reading all the insights and trying to make sense of how AI fits in their organizations and their life, truly.
Totally. It's such a hot topic, obviously, which is why we do the show bi-weekly. And so I'm curious to hear from you guys too. And Philip, maybe you can weigh in terms of like, you guys talk about all of this new technology and all of this new innovation, but why are people paying attention? Why should people care about AI specifically? How are they using it? I mean, give me a little bit of your thoughts around the report and why you think people are paying attention right now.
Right. So well, a number of reasons why we're paying attention. I think there's the external, right? So we're looking for validation that what we're doing right now in our own businesses and in our roles, that we're not alone, that there's others out there, and that's one. We are looking for validation that we are on this journey together. E-commerce operators are by nature early adopters, right? But we also want to know that we're not following a tech trend, right? We don't want to be in the NFT crowd necessarily. We don't want to be following the hype train. We want to make sure that the investments that we're making right now as operators in this ecosystem is future-proofed. And so number one, we're finding that people are looking for this kind of research that backs up that the investments they're making in both software and in resources is valid and will, produce results. So that's number one. Number two, people are looking for a competitive edge, both in their business and personally in their careers. So a lot of folks find themselves future-proofing their career and looking to their employers for validation that they're allowed to be using the software and they're skilling up and that they're making investments in this type of software suite and this capability, not just to further the business initiative, but to further their own career advancement. And so what we find, and the big so what kind of comes into these 4 buckets as we showed here earlier. Really proud of the insights team and really proud of the work that we've done. And this is sourced through our almost 7 years here of building the highest quality audience of e-commerce and retail executives and operators in this ecosystem that are really creating what we call the future of commerce. So they're paving the way. I think the big top line number that we keep talking about is 9 in 10 folks are using AI in their day-to-day role in our study, whether their employers know about it or not. And so just understanding that it is so pervasive and it's already being put to use, not tactically how it's being used. I think we can shift gears and talk about that, but it's being used in some way and it's going far beyond experimentation and trinkets and toys. And it's being put to use in ways that are actually driving productivity.
No, I totally agree. That's why I felt like I read this report and it felt very validating. It was kind of like, okay, I'm not the only one. We're all on this train together. And I know Paul and I have had conversations about this before as well. And it's just kind of like, where does Bloomreach come in? How do we help push this forward? I know that this is obviously something that's very important to us as well. But just kind of wanted to obviously give a preview here and then kind of go into the discussion. So
sure.
Give you a little peek, and then Paul, just kind of give me your thoughts around why people are paying attention here from your side.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the report, it's clear. I mean, there's some really good validation in this report. Firstly, we see we're in an adoptive phase for sure. The world is changing. People are changing. Like, it is now normal to be doing, like, as you say, AI in some form. Now, the question is what form? Now it's all about, or the report certainly highlights a lot of it is about content creation. So be that internal, be that external, be that kind of titles of SMSs and campaigns and that kind of stuff. Is that where it ends? I don't think so. I think this is an opening salvo. I think, and certainly the work we're doing and the development we're doing is how do we bring that sort of deeper into the stack, and how do we bring that kind of deeper into the creative and deeper into the product and deeper into the algorithm. So it's a really, really interesting piece of validation, this report, for me, I think. And it's sort of, I don't think anybody's got a choice, right? This train has left the station. It's been going since November. We know it's happening. And the question is, how do we leverage it in the best possible way? And the reports like this are very valuable tools.
I totally agree. We're always trying to figure out how to best use it, how to advance the career, like you said, Philip. So I guess Future Commerce team, let's start with like maybe your favorite key takeaways. What stood out to you guys as you were putting this report together? Is there anything that you were shocked to see? Is there anything you were excited to share where you're like, oh my gosh, people are going to love this piece of data? Maybe Rachel, you can kick us off with that.
Yeah, I think piggybacking on a little bit of this 9 in 10 number that Philip mentioned before, and this idea that AI is pervasive, whether people know about it or not. I keep thinking back to some of the more sensational articles from earlier this summer around, shadow usage and kind of the fear aligned with what people could be doing with AI at work under your nose, right? I think there were a lot of sensational pieces around that. And I think what I was excited to see, and what I think our community can take from that, is to encourage that experimentation and transparency, even when there are no stringent guidelines or guardrails in place at the moment in your company. As knowledge bases grow, so does productivity. This feeling of validation, this feeling of togetherness. Dating myself, I remember when everyone switched to iPhones from BlackBerry, and there was this feeling of this community around how we're using technology in different ways, and how it's benefiting not only our organization but ourselves. So kind of this like I said, this encouragement, this embrace is a key theme that we've really structured some of the insights around. And the optimism, to Philip's point, the future proofing that comes along with that, not just as ethical members of an organization and doing what's best for your company, but also for yourself, and realizing, coming around away from the fear and realizing that this is a tool that's going to be here to stay, that's going to continue to evolve. And so the best way to arm ourselves to gain that competitive edge, personally and professionally, and organizationally, is really to just, to talk about it, and to try things, and to, talk to others about how they're using it, and find those small ways that help you gain comfort personally, which then can obviously lead to huge impacts corporately.
I think I'd really echo that. It's the trust piece. So people are learning to trust it, and they're learning that they can create more with it. So it kind of raises the bar for them professionally. It raises their value to the organization. It raises their value in their career. So it's not, am I being replaced? It's how am I using this new technology to become amazing? And there's always going to be room for people to be amazing. That never goes away. And actually, it's kind of interesting, because if you don't do anything, if you just ask it a flat question, everybody gets the same flat answer. And that's the danger. That's just the tapioca, like everybody doing the same thing. So we have to innovate. We have to create. We have to do that thing that we're good at as human beings. And I think this kind of really, really shows that people are starting to turn that corner.
I would even jump in too, there, Paul, on the back, is that when you look at the use cases that, the primary use cases that we tested and found through the study, it really is, we are so early, and that the obvious use cases are obvious. It's really indexing toward people using it for content and copy creation. What we see, though, is this idea of and the pervasiveness of the copy generation is less akin to, we don't need accountants or statisticians anymore in the world because we have calculators and spreadsheets. It's more about, what does the world look like and how productive are we, that people who don't have numeracy or data literacy can be empowered to have those through the tools of spreadsheets and calculators. Well, what if large language models give that same sort of copy generation, assistive and productivity nature to everybody on your team who may not be a copy expert? And that helps with facilitating the interpersonal dynamics of writing a better email, having a better Slack conversation, perhaps not cutting corners in the things that actually matter in business, around better quality assurance processes, drafting better briefs. There are things that we tend to cut corners on, especially in service agencies, especially in directing external teams, that are all happening in a remote first world, that we can't afford to cut corners on. Well, now everybody on the team have very obvious tools through AI to get better at that sort of communication. And then they also have a better way of using AI to discern what someone's tone may have meant in that communication. Yeah. So there's a really interesting and powerful emergent behavior here that I'm reading between the lines, is that people, as they come to trust the tool, will use it for more things beyond the obvious use cases.
There's also another kind of emergent behavior there as well, is that we're learning to validate this stuff. Because now we're reading documents in a different way. We're reading what's being created from a questioning perspective to say, actually, do I think this? Is this right? Is there hallucination? Is there stuff that needs validating? Is the maths correct? Who knows, right? So that's like a brand new behavior we've never had to do before. By the way, Andrew, yes, the poll was amazing.
Too funny. Well, I love that you guys shared some key takeaways that you really loved, because I thought what was really cool about this is that it, like you said, the train has left the station, but it's like, okay, so what? What's next? What are we going to do now? And I love that it's kind of building a community around people who are really interested. I feel like every pocket of my social and professional world is like, okay, if you're interested in AI, jump in, add to the discussion, figure out how you're using it. Cause we all, like, no one wants to feel left behind. So I feel like everybody's just kind of jumping on it and figuring it out and figuring out how they can be amazing using these tools. But it sounds like something that the organizations are like, we can't ignore this anymore. How do we embrace it? So I love that you guys touched on that. I wanted to touch on, and we typically only go for about 20 minutes. So I wanted to kind of get you guys talking about, what does the report mean for the industry as a whole? Obviously, we talk about AI a lot. It's baked into everything that we do here at Bloomreach. But in regards to what you guys are seeing, what do you feel like the report is going to do for the industry? Is this just the beginning? Will you guys continue to put out more reports like this? What are your thoughts? Maybe Philip, you can kick us off.
Yeah. Well, I have a few. There are explicit takeaways. I think if a stat from the report is 65% of businesses, or those that are decision makers in businesses in our study, expect to see budgets either allocated or increased to tools that have generative AI at their core over the next 6 months, and that's a short time frame. That gets us just past holiday 2023. If that is happening on such a short time scale, then the implicit takeaway is that, what about the 35% that aren't making those investments? How does the gap widen between the folks that are making investments now and not making investments in the future? So there's going to be a really stark contrast between businesses who are getting this productivity increase and future-proofing their workforce. And I think that comes back down to the things that I think really matter. I don't know that any given tool or early adoption of a tool is the difference maker in market leaders. I think it gives people a competitive advantage for a short period of time. What I think the actual competitive advantage in businesses is happy employees who are around for the long haul, who contribute and go over and above every single day, and they are feeling fulfilled in their role. And if you can empower your employees there, I think that's where the 65% difference starts to make a big impact in the long run. So for me, that's a big so what here.
I think I'd echo that. Productivity and efficiency, I think, are going to be core to the benefits of this for sure.
Yeah.
Rachel, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I also just think, about kind of those joining the workforce as well, and about how they're leveraging that, in a more ad hoc way, but just part of their organic and native digital exploration, in school, in grad school, et cetera. And as they start entering, the commerce world truly, what kind of lessons they bring to the table, to teach all of the older, more established generation, again, who's using it in the obvious ways, but what are these ways that frankly, like, business leaders might not even be able to identify because of just our bias towards how things have been, right? That you can't really erase. So I'm really excited about seeing how people who don't have kind of the legacy ideas in place start bringing that to the table. Yeah. Also, just how companies, not only establish guardrails and guidelines for how it's used and when and where and why and what, but also, like, just understanding how different people can approach ways to prompt different tools, and how that then becomes the skill more than the being able to use the tool itself, right? Like the fidelity with which different types of people bring that to the table. So I just think there's, unlimited potential. And obviously, as more people become more fluent, it's going to change not only commerce, but our culture and every industry.
I love that you kind of said that, because it's kind of promoting, creativity. I think about, like, building community around, like, our product specifically, which is what I'm in day in and day out. But I'm always thinking about, like, okay, how are you guys getting really creative in terms of using our tool, and how can we share that knowledge with the rest of the group? Like, how can we, I mean, it obviously is a competitive advantage once you kind of figure out like this little hack, but maybe doing like hackathons, or I feel like a small version of that is like TikTok, where people are sharing really cool prompts that they've discovered that they can leverage. And now they're sharing it with millions of people. So you can leverage it too. And it kind of goes beyond that. Just write me a blog post about X, Y, and Z. It becomes, pretend that you are a social media manager and you're basing, your content on fears, desires, interests, wants, needs. I mean, like the prompt that I just saw this morning was just so out of course my morning scroll. And I was like, this is taking prompting to another level, but that's the creativity behind it. That's where I think people can really get a little wild and figure out what works and then share that with the world. So I'm super excited about the creativity side and seeing how people take it and use it and leverage it. I think that's kind of be the fun part.
I'll even jump in there and add on top of it. And this is not found in, explicitly in the report. But one thing that we did find is that generally people are looking at Gen AI. The tool that comes to mind is ChatGPT. And so this chat interface provides a constant stream of mechanism of back and forth. It encourages you to have an ongoing dialogue. How many coworkers do you have today, Elena, that will engage in an infinite and dispassionate dialogue with you about how to do something better? And so, and always on, the status light's always green. And I think that's where another power of modern workforce is, that we have this coworker available to provide, all kinds of help to us, not just in the tactic and the process of doing real everyday work, but also critique on how you can do your job better. Think about 360 reviews on a different level. One thing that I do at Future Commerce is recently, over the last 2 months, I've been taking our transcripts from podcasts and interviews, and I feed it back into ChatGPT, and I ask, how could I have interviewed this person better? How could I have prepared better? I think that that's the kind of thing that we would have hired an expert for in the past, or would never have hired that expert because there's a barrier or friction to doing so. Today, there's no friction to getting that kind of insight, to just being better. That is, I think, an incredible thing that we can all benefit from. Yeah.
It's less of a hit to the ego too, when it's just like the computer telling you.
Yeah. What do you know, computer?
Whatever. Yeah. No, that's so funny. I love that use case. I think that's fun. And that's where the creativity comes in. Paul, do you have any other thoughts around that? I think you and I have talked about this too at length.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think that there's a whole new generation that are going to come along who are like these conversational natives. And the way that we're interacting now is going to be completely alien to these people. They're, at the moment, what we say and what we think we've said are maybe slightly different. Actually, we're probably better at writing things down. We're maybe don't quite express things in the right way. That's going to kind of be a skill in its own right, of saying, oh, this prompting, right? Prompting is exactly that. It's saying what it is, but it's expressing the thing you want with all the boundaries around it and all the kind of logic built into the thing to then get it to do whatever. And at the moment, that's a conversation. It might be pulling some data from somewhere, but we're going to see it kicking off processes and starting internal things, and doing stuff and affecting your business in real time. And that's what that next generation, well, I think probably the next generation are going to be like. And that's what they're going to be expecting, is this native interface of just ask it to go and make my e-commerce better, sort my search out, do my categories for me, generate me a campaign, all of these things. And I think we're seeing the convergence of all these technologies. So yeah, super exciting.
I love that. Well, I was going to say too, I was just looking at the chat too, because we are live here. And I thought, first of all, Rachel, you got some comments around the Pearl was kind of awesome, in my opinion. BlackBerry, #BlackBerry nostalgia, which I love. But Andrew mentioned, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and this will be the last one. And also, if you want to read the report, we will drop it here in the chat so you guys can tune in and read it. Let us know what you guys think when you go through it. But Andrew asked, are we training AI or is AI training us? And which I thought was kind of interesting, because we've talked about, how we're able to train it. What are y'all's thoughts? I know that that's a really good question, so I wanted to touch on that before we left.
I'll pipe up. We have a report actually that we put out every year, another property of ours that we partnered with Bloomreach earlier in the year, called Visions. And a key part of the Visions report this year, back in June, was this concept of the human to machine dynamics and how we inform each other. One of the pieces of that report is a popular theory that consent culture in sort of modern dating arises from consent in things like Windows Vista. We have learned and created permission structures in human relationships based on permission structures that we get through digital UI. And I think that that might be true. So it's a theory, but I think sometimes the theory helps us to give language to something in a behavior that we otherwise wouldn't have, and to give permission to have that behavior. So I do think that it adapts human behavior and it becomes normalized. It is a question that I think will be really important for our development professionally over the next few years. I think the way that culture adopts these things is accelerating, but it's usually on a delay from the way that things like e-commerce businesses adopt these types of business practices and normalize like language and transactional behavior. So
I think you're absolutely right with this training piece. I mean, just look at swiping left and right. That's, right. These are learned behaviors. You look at even the way that people search when they're on websites. That is a learned behavior that's based on the capability of the technology. And that's obviously changing at the moment as well. But I think in terms of the models themselves, if you look at like generative AI specifically, that is a function of the combined language of the human race, right? That's what that thing's learned. It's learned typically what you're going to say next when you put a bunch of tokens in. What's going to be the next token? That's whole generative piece. So one is a function of the other. I think it's a really good question to say, are we training it or is it training us? It's both. I think it's happening in both directions. And I think that we're seeing, as much as we're seeing emergent behavior in the actual generative AI space, that's causing emergent behavior in our space as well. So now, I mean, we've been talking about prompting, you're talking about TikTok, you're talking about all of these kind of things which have suddenly started happening since November of last year. This behavior has changed. So yeah, I think we're training each other at an increasing pace.
No, I totally agree. Thank you for weighing in. I love that question. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and asking questions. We had one more. I think we're kind of at time, but if you guys have time to chat, jump into the chat and you want to respond, we would love that. Thank you for everybody who tuned in, and thank you to our amazing guests. I'm so excited for everybody to get their hands on this report. Obviously, we previewed it before. We gave some insight today, and we hope you download it and let us know what you think. We want to continue this conversation. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.